Welcome to the Negotiation Club. Now, this is a pop-up negotiation practice. Now, we haven't actually done one of these live before. I do a lot of these in a lot of workshops, but this is going to be the first time I've done one live, and I'm going to do it with a friend of mine, Mike, and actually I've got another friend of mine, Fred, who's going to obviously ask and I'll provide a little bit of feedback as well. But let me get our two individuals on. So we have Fred Copestake from Brindis. Fred, if I'm right in thinking you're a trainer in sales. Sales is your side of the game, is that right?
Sales is absolutely my side of the game. Yes, so I'm coming to look at it with that hat on.
Yeah, and I'm in awe of you at the end of the day because you've also written a couple of books, haven't you? Which I'm still trying to do mine. Yeah. It's always the case, isn't it? When people have their books, they've got to have them just over here.
It's pure luck.
Yeah. I haven't got books, but I've got cards. I've got my deck of cards at the top there. And Mike, your negotiation training, but your background is predominantly on the procurement side as well, then.
It is, although so one of my differentiators, I teach salespeople how procurement people think and negotiate, and then I teach procurement people how to negotiate better deals. I think procurement, it's very easy to beat the other side up. It's harder, takes more effort for a procurement person to learn to negotiate a deal from the perspective of, I actually want to have a better relationship with this supplier, but I still have my goals and needs I need to meet. And so that's a lot. I spend a lot of time with procurement people on that.
Okay. Right, because I mean, from my perspective, I spend nearly all of my time just practicing what happens in a negotiation, irrespective of whether you're a buyer or seller. In fact, when I actually do the exercises, I just, you're a seller, you're a buyer, it makes no difference. And literally every week they change. It's like, oh, I was a seller last week. Well, same skills. But that's what we're going to. So
is it though? I mean, I got to be honest.
Oh, we're going to start now, aren't we? Go on.
Well, Fred's here because I want to get his take. I feel like procurement has an easier job negotiating. I feel like it's harder to sell than it is to buy. There was in my sales career, when you close a deal in sales, you call your spouse and you say, "Hey, we're going out to dinner tonight. Put something nice on. Let's go somewhere and celebrate." But in purchasing, it's like, I awarded a purchase order today. No big deal. There isn't the euphoria that goes with it, and I don't know. Fred, do you experience that from the sales side? Is there a euphoria that happens when you close a deal?
Yeah, there is. I mean, I think from difficulty, whose job is harder. I mean, the salesperson has got to do the whole of the selling process before you even get into the negotiation process. So you've got all that good stuff going on, which, if you're doing that right, will make your negotiation easier because you've got the background and you've got the value and you've got all that stuff that you can talk around. So they've probably got more plates to spin and more things that they have to get right, whereas procurement can really focus in on that particular part of it. But to say who's
right, in procurement, we can just go, Fred, if you can't do this, your competition can, or I'm just not going to spend the money. I won't release the budget. There's fear, uncertainty, and doubt that a buyer can introduce that makes salespeople under the table, their knees are shaking, because purchasing people can be scary if they choose to be. And that's why, I mean, it's easier for a salesperson or purchasing person to break out this fear tactic, and weak sellers fall for it like that.
Yeah, which is why if you're selling properly, you can set yourself up to be in a stronger position then, because you've worked through the whole process. So the value is so much about where the customer defines it anyway. Yeah, that's one of the things about value selling.
I'm going to disagree with both of you.
That's what we're talking about.
I'm going to disagree.
It's your show. Don't mean you're right though.
No, the only reason I say that is that when I speak to procurement people, it's like, oh, sales have all the power. When I speak to sales people, it's like, oh, procurement have all the power. A lot of it is mindset, and there's other elements that come together with it as well. And they often, they've got more power than us. Is not so much that they have got more power than us, but it's almost it's still that win-lose mentality,
or it's perceived power.
Yeah, power might be the wrong word for it in a sense, but I'm getting sidetracked here. You've done it again, Mike. I was just gonna show you my horn of success. So when I make a sale,
I love that.
So when I make a visual. So when I make a sale, I use my horn of success.
I love it.
It comes from because my dad used to be a trainer as well, back in the 80s for many years. And in the office, and they used to work from home as well. And in the office, whenever they made a sale, whenever they got somebody signed on to the course, an individual, they shout out, all of them, they shout out, order.
See, that's what I'm talking about. That euphoria on the sales side. Do you have a horn of success when you buy them? When you purchased Restream or some service? Do you honk the horn when you buy something?
No,
it's buyer's regret.
That's all I'm saying.
Buyer's remorse. Yeah.
All right, listen. There's people tuned in. I don't know how many we got, but I'm sure they're all tuned in by now. So if
we need to crack on. Oh, but by the way, so for those of you who are watching, there is a little bit of a delay of about 15 seconds or so on here. But if you have any questions, all right, and I'm presuming this on LinkedIn Live, I can't see any numbers, so I don't know who's on it. It might be nobody. But if you're on LinkedIn Live, type in some questions, okay? And if we can, we'll answer it. But more importantly, we're actually we're here to actually have a negotiation practice. We don't want to talk about it. We actually want to do it. Now, Mike and both Fred are familiar with this, but if you're not familiar with this, the way that we do this is we want a simple negotiation, which we can identify very, very quickly. And the purpose of the negotiation is not necessarily to win or lose or to get a final result. It's to practice something that happens in a negotiation. So the key here is, are we able to identify and to actually use a skill or use a tactic? And we use basic negotiation cards for that. So if you're not familiar with it, you'll start to understand it. So what's going to happen is, Fred, you're going to be our observer, because of course in negotiations it's always good to have somebody to observe as well. So Fred's going to be our observer, and in fact I and Mike, we're going to have a little negotiation. It's going to last about 4 minutes. Now I'm going to throw it out there, Mike. Would you like to be just had this conversation about sellers or buyers? I don't know whether you want a horn of success. Do you want to be the seller or the buyer?
I think in every one of your sessions that I've done, I've been the buyer, so I'd like the challenge of being the seller.
Right, in that case, I shall do that. You are now the seller. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to quickly change my name. And the reason why I do this, it just makes it a little bit easier for everybody to understand which part we're coming at, okay? Right, so Fred, I'm going to kick you out. Whee, there he goes. All right, so he's in the background. I'm presuming you can still hear. Can you still hear me? Yeah, okay.
I can, yeah.
No, I was thinking about Fred. I can see his mouth working, but I can't hear him. So I'm presuming that means he can hear us. Right, okay. In that case, listen, we're going to have our little negotiation. So first things first. Yep, my little 4 minutes on there as well. So we're going to have a 4-minute negotiation. Now then, you're the seller. Actually, no, I always like the seller on the left. So here we go. Technology. Right. So we're going to use, it's in pounds, but it doesn't matter. It could be dollars, but we're going to use a pounds one. Now, again, for everybody, Mike and I are going to have a negotiation. We are going to try and negotiate the price per ton of apples, because I like my apples. And we're also going to try a tactic out as well. So there will be a tactic to try out. Now, I'm going to show Mike his card, and he will have a break-even point. Of course, we need to negotiate above that. So, Mike, I promise you I can't see this, but can you see that?
Of course. I can.
You got it?
Yep.
All right. And a tactic for you. Okay, so this is for you to have a go at. Okay.
I understand. Thank you.
Right. Now, if you look away from the video just for a moment, I'll show everybody what I've got on my card. So for those of you who are not familiar, this is my budget. So as a buyer, I need to negotiate a price below that if we get there. And as far as a tactic is concerned, I need to try and incorporate this as a tactic. Okay. Right. So, Mike, you can look back.
All right.
Okay. Now then, let me just have a think. Right. I think we should have a go then. Okay. So, Mike, you ready?
I'm ready.
You see how this works now. Okay. Right. So in 3, 2, 1. Good afternoon, Mike.
Phil,
How are you?
today? Hey, I'm doing wonderful. It's great to see you again.
Okay.
You're back
Thank you
to
very
buy
much.
some more apples, I see.
I certainly am. Yeah, we had a little bit of a taste from you earlier. And as I explained before, we've got a kind of a range of products that we are looking to develop in our market, both fruit juices, but also a pie range as well. So I really want to have a conversation with you about what kind of products you have, just to expand on what we spoke about last time.
Let me just digest what I heard you say. You're expanding your product lines. You've got the juices, you've got the pies, so you're really your business is good enough to expand from where you started. That's what I heard you say.
Yeah, we are. Well, not necessarily saying we're expanding at the moment, but we have a range of products that we are developing. Yeah,
in development.
Yeah.
And how close are you to end development where you're going to market?
So where we're at the moment is that we have 2 production lines, juicing production line and the bakery side of things as well. Juicing production line should be online basically within the next 4 months, and the baking line should be online within the next 5 months.
So what I heard you say is you're looking for a longer term play. You're not just coming today to buy apples to eat. You're looking for a longer term solution.
I think ultimately we're in business to be in business. So if you can provide us with options that are effective, then yeah, long term is an option. But it has to be an effective solution. I mean, we want something that is going to work for us. So we're looking for somebody who can provide us with a reasonable range of qualities that can go across the board there, but we also want to have a really good price associated with that as well.
All right, so repeating myself, what I heard you say was you're looking for the right specification, the right quality, the right timing, and the right price.
In essence, yeah.
Well, that's a lofty challenge, but we'll do our best.
Right. In that case, let me put it out there. All right. So we're looking for two basically ranges. We're looking for a low quality, okay, which can go in the juices, and we're looking for a medium quality cooking apple that can go into the bakery side of things. Now, from a low quality juicing perspective, we really want to be paying around the 400 to 475 mark. And for the medium quality side, we really want to be paying between the 500 and 575 mark.
Okay, so given that lower quality is something that a lot of people can produce, let's focus on if we can meet your needs on the high quality or the medium quality, as you call it. Now, a challenge here is we don't do things partially. We do them really well, or we don't do them at all. So meeting your needs on the price of the medium is going to be difficult. We could do something in the 670 range for the medium. And if we can earn you business on the medium, then I think we can do something between volume, shipping together, spreading it, I don't know, spreading the labor. We'll come to that second, but we've got to be able to meet your needs on the medium first.
4 minutes is up.
Oh, there we go.
Okay. Hey. So, as Fred knows, it's a round of applause. Okay. All right. I always give it applause, even to myself when I practice, because, nobody else is going to do that. It's like a horn of success as a buyer. I'm going to pat myself on the back. Yeah, the reason why I always give people a round of applause when we are practicing is because people don't practice Now, some of you might be watching that and thinking, oh, God, that was terrible. And others will be thinking, you know what, there's some little snippets in there that was truly interesting to see actually happen. Because we very rarely get to see anybody negotiate. And the idea here is that simply within 4 minutes, we're trying things out. Now, one of the things I always do at the end of this is I try to ask the negotiators, what do you think the other person was practicing? And the reason why I ask this is it really helps to sort of focus the mind. It's not just about us. It's about the other party. So, Mike, I would like to ask you, out of the potential tactics that you think I might have been practicing, what do you think there was one that I was focusing on?
Let me be fully transparent, Phil. I have no idea. I was so focused on my own tactic, it was hard for me to do, because of the way my brain operates and my cognitive bias of what's been successful for me. It was really hard for me, and I'm glad I got to practice it in a safe learning environment like this. So I don't have an answer. I have no idea what your tactic was. I was so focused on mine.
Okay, right. Well, I was actually trying to introduce a range tactic.
Okay. Right. And you did it very well. And you had 2 ranges, by the way.
I had 2 ranges. Oh yeah. I'm gonna honk my horn of success there because I managed to get my tactic in twice. And to be honest, I mean, and you know, negotiations don't have to be complex. We talk about these as tactics, but these are actually skills, right? Skills. We see these all around. Okay. Now, a range tactic is massively useful in negotiations. Often when you put a range into a negotiation, it focuses the other party's attention with that range. Whereas if you get one item or one position you put out there, you know, the other party can start to rethink on either side. But putting a range down can have an impact. And when we're talking about commercials and pricing like this, you know, the seller's going to focus on the higher end. And of course, the other side is the buyer will focus on the lower end. So again, it's another way of anchoring. So range tactic, really, really useful. We see it all over the place, right? Always. Now then, Mike, there was a couple of things that you were doing, but the one thing that seemed to really catch my attention was your recapping and your summarizing. So I suspect summarizing was the one that you were having a go at.
You'd be incorrect. And this is why it was hard for me. The pause, consider, respond. I like to go fast, and I like to take charge. I feel better when I'm in control of a situation. So for me to listen and not immediately respond, to do the pause and the consider, and to show you that I was considering, and then respond was really challenging for me to do.
And I love that, all right, because we all have our own styles in negotiation. And what you're saying is my style is fast and quick, take control.
Yeah, like an F1 driver. Like there's no slow lane for me. You're in the cockpit, you're the pilot, you're going.
Yeah.
And to go in the slow lane was really awkward for me.
But the point is, sometimes you have to drive slow. All right. So in negotiations, there'll be circumstances where really, actually, you do not want to be, you know, headstrong, straight in, loud, everything else. Sometimes you do have to back off. You sometimes have to go. So the whole purpose of what we're doing here, practicing, and that pause, consider, and control, it was painful for you.
Yeah.
But the more you do it, the more you can add that to your repertoire of skills. So,
Fred, can you feel the pain for the awkwardness?
No, it's interesting. I couldn't.
No.
From the outsider and with the sales trainer head on, it was this guy is taking this other guy really seriously. He's helping him to get his head around something, because this is what I talk about in sales all the time. Our job's to help people think. So you are asking questions, also massive thumbs up, and letting him work it through. So it looked really cool. And you're obviously the duck on water where kind of the feet underneath were doing that, but you were like,
oh, it was so underneath. I was like, and I'm writing notes, like, you know, it was, yeah. Okay. So I'm glad that I have a technique that I use. I have, when I rest, my face is very angry looking, resting B face. And I'm an only child, and I've driven between LA and Miami 5 times by myself, only speaking to like the person at the hotel check-in desk. I'm very, very comfortable with silence. It was the pause and consider part of the silence and then respond that I found really hard to do. Because once I decide how I want to respond, I don't want to wait. I want to get on with it. And that clock ticking down, that, you know, I felt like extra pressure.
Yeah, because you see again another thing. Time is such an impact in it, particularly for somebody who feels under pressure. Now, I've done a few of these, so I'm not really worried about the clock. All right, I'm just thinking, right, how do I incorporate my tactic? How do I make this work in this practice? Whereas, I mean, and I appreciate it, Mike. You've only done a couple of these with me, for example, but there is a time pressure, there is a need to do something, and I am making you do something you haven't done before.
Yeah.
So you're feeling uncomfortable. Fred is saying, you know what? I don't see it as being uncomfortable. In fact, what I saw was that slowing down was making you become more mindful of the other party and perhaps sharing more information. So your own personal impression of it is very different to what other people see. And that's
Thank you for reframing that in a positive way.
Well, no, it is positive. It's a way of doing it.
So we got two people have commented that I want to get to, but one thing I want to say about time, is this comes up with salespeople. Purchasing people will oftentimes, at the end of the month, end of the quarter, end of the year, know that they have some leverage because their salesperson hasn't met quota. So they'll arrange the negotiations toward the end of the month, end of the quarter, end of the year to create that extra leverage because the clock is ticking for that salesperson to get the order in at the finish line. But what a lot of salespeople don't know is in purchasing, there's an internal user community that has set the spec, that has worked with purchasing, that makes the decision, and they've told purchasing, here's who we're going with. Now, maybe purchasing has a seat at the table and can influence it, but largely it's the decision's been made by the committee. Let's go. And purchasing will say, well, hold on a second, I got to go negotiate. And the committee will say, no, we got to start. We have milestones. And the purchasing will say, hold on, give me a day, give me 2 days to get this deal in place. And the purchasing or the committee will say, you purchasing people, come on, hurry up. So when purchasing calls and says to the seller, hey, listen, I need to negotiate your deal. Come on, $675, you're going to need to do better. Under the table, our knees are shaking because we know we have a user community we have to please, but we can't let sales know there's a time pressure on us. We have to be nonchalant and cool. And, I don't have to place the order today, and I don't have to place the order tomorrow. And if you can't meet my needs, I might not place the order with you at all. And under the table, our knees are shaking and we're getting yelled at, and we can't let the seller see that.
But wouldn't a good salesperson be in a great position who sat there thinking, I know, because I know the buying committee, I know the timelines. Yes. That's what the proposal was around. I know why you're having to buy this stuff, but I'm not going to play the bad guy here. Yeah, I'm going to give you the time and space to go through this process you have to go through. Yeah, but actually, I know where you're at. But that's good selling, to know all that.
Getting on the buyer's sheet of paper, and we call it backdoor selling, going around the buyer, working with the end user community to find out, when does this project need to start? And if you can find out that purchasing talked to the competitors on Monday and Tuesday, and the project's going to start on Thursday, and they're talking to the salesperson on Wednesday, a good salesperson will go, hold on a second, you've already talked to my competition. You're just using their information to negotiate with me, and you're starting tomorrow. I've got this deal.
Right. I'm going to stop you there, okay, Mike? Because again, you and I, we can end up, we can go down these conversations, but there's a couple of things I want to sort of, there's a couple of things I want to do here, because obviously 4 minutes, did a few things in here. There's a few comments as well that we can get to as well. But before I throw it over to Fred, because Fred, I'd like you to give a critique of what you saw as well. There's a couple of points I want to make here. I did use a range tactic. I put some prices out there. One of the things that I was looking for was to see how you're going to respond to those ranges. Okay. Yeah. So for me, it's always a massively important moment. So I actually took note of this. So when I actually put those ranges down, I put the first one down. I was very methodical and slow with it, 400s. The second one I put down into the 500s. Okay. So 500s, 575. What I noticed from you, Mike, was there is obviously a little bit of a grimace on the old face, but you were also pausing. And I don't know whether you were pausing because that was what your tactic was. Okay. But then I also noticed that rather than rejecting, you then started to focus and have some clarification questions. Now, I don't know. I haven't looked at your card, but for me, that would be suggesting to me that actually those ranges are potentially acceptable by you. All right. So 430. Yeah. Okay. You don't. I've got the card here. I can see it. Okay, 450.
Well, for everyone who's just tuning in. Yeah, so anything above 450 was going to be a win for me. So I think you read it properly. Had I not been so focused on myself and my tactic and how awkward I felt, my normal pre-planned response as a buyer is, no matter what you say, Phil, you're out of your mind.
Yeah.
There's no way. Right? I was going to give a hard no, but I was so focused on myself and my tactic that I didn't do it nearly as hard as I would have had I been in my natural state.
And I'll just add to that. One of the reasons for that is that because that pause, consider, respond was something you haven't necessarily done before and you were focused on it, it was less natural to you. But the more natural it becomes, the more you don't have to think about it, and then you bring it into your portfolio. So every time you this whole point, every time you practice these things, it might sound daft. Practice open questions. Oh, I'm thinking about it. Okay. The more you practice it, the more it becomes natural to your toolkit.
So allow me to go overtime on the 4 minutes and redo that. So you threw out a range, and what was your first range? 400 to 450 for the low quality, or
400, 475, and then 500
for the low quality. So that I could have got at the 475. But if I would have used pause, consider, respond, instead of just saying, Phil, you're out of your mind. If I would have said, Phil,
I'm gonna stop you there.
Yeah.
Because for me, if you're using a pause and then you take your time before you reject it, it basically means you're thinking about it, and it's not an immediate rejection. So that's the one thing I would pick up there.
Okay. So, but if I would have said, Phil, I'm considering what I'm going to say here because I don't want to offend you, and that offer is offensive. If I would have framed it up in that language, I don't want to offend you personally, Phil, but that offer is offensive. And if I would have just paused, let me choose the right words here, Phil. That's offensive. Would that have been different?
Probably not, because for me, that's particularly unusual to have that. So I'd have a think about it. But again, it might be offensive. You're not saying no.
Okay, so what I heard you say was it's better for me to slip out of the tactic of pause, consider, response, and to go right into whoa, time out. This isn't going to happen.
Put it this way, all right? If you had a break even and it was 700, okay, you wouldn't want to try and frame it as in, look, I don't want to be disrespectful here and say that that's really not an acceptable position. You'd be saying, look, Phil, I can't accept that. That's not going to work for me at all.
But fast instead of the pause. So it's when you use the technique, the tactic, you don't have to use it all the time. It's like tools on if these sound panels were tools on a carpenter's wall. You pick the right tool at the right time and use it the right way, you'll be successful. But if you try to use it all the time, what I tell people is if all you have is a hammer, you're going to build a funny looking house. You'll be really good at pounding those nails, but the house is going to be all wonky.
Where I would suggest, if I could jump in, where the pauses worked is because what you were doing is you were doing the stuff up front trying to understand what he was actually going to be doing with this stuff. So let me just digest this. So the business is good. So it's in development. Okay. So again, if I'm hearing you right, so you're going, I'm taking what you're telling me seriously. So if you go into that bombastic, Phil's working hard to try and explain, this is what my business is all about. This is me. This is my future. Yeah. Anyway, go on, let's just get this deal on the table. It's like, you don't care about me. You're just trying to sell your bloody apples, And what it also set up, because you'd done that thinking, you kind of gave a verbal wins, which was, I know Phil talks about the professional wins, but he says, what I've heard you say here, he said, this is going to be a lofty challenge. In other words, mate, this is tricky now. So we could hear the price.
But I didn't say no. I just said it was tricky.
Oh, it's going to be a lofty challenge. They were the exact words. It's like, okay, that's cool. So you're now saying this is going to be tough. Feathering your nest, ready to go with the next piece. So it gave that consultative side real kind of authenticity, if you like, which again, if I think we got longer and actually got into the more of the kind of the haggling bit, or a better word, we'd have probably picked up that pace.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. Hey, what do our audience, what do they have to say?
So we had Stefan Blink. So let me just put one up here. So Stefan said, why do you say a range is successful? The other party will either pick the highest or the lowest and ignore the other, or just counter with a high number.
Done on that. I'm 100%. I ignored the other end of your range, and I was going for the higher ends and trying to get them even higher.
Correct, but you've also got that other number. The thing is, it's when you're negotiating, okay. I mean, we know what it is. It's a zone of possible agreement. We don't know
what was your zone again. What was your?
I had 733.
733. Okay.
Yeah. All right. So, so when one party puts out a position out there, you end up with two pieces of information: your information and the other party's proposal. Okay. So you can have the conversation who goes first, but when I put that range out, I put two pieces of information down, and you've got your piece of information. So now you've got three. Okay. So it is going to have a subtle impact on you. All right. And if you're not prepared, if you're not practiced, if you're not aware of the implications of these things, it's going to focus your attention automatically. Now, range catching can be used in many, many different ways. It can literally be done. I could be looking for a number that's in the middle. All right, that for me would be reasonable. Therefore, I'm going to put an extreme number and a nice, and a not so extreme one, thinking I get somewhere in the middle. Or I can use it to focus you on one of those. The other way sometimes as a seller, you could say, right, well, what are you looking for, Phil? What quality? I'm looking for medium quality. Well, as it happens, we have a high quality, which is £1,500 a ton, but our medium quality is £800. Now, I know you're not going to go for the 15, the high quality. So what I'm doing is just throwing out a ridiculously high number, but it actually makes the 800 sound reasonable.
It does. Sure.
So there's different ways you can use a range tactic, but what it does is it does help to funnel the expectations of the other party.
I think that's a really good way of framing it up. Is it can throw out a number that's nonsense to make the other number feel more reasonable and nice. I don't know that in this, giving the two ranges for just low and one for just medium does that. But I think if you said, well, the high ends are at this number and the mediums are now at this number, it feels more reasonable.
Well, when I put the 400, 475 in, I was looking for your reaction, and I was slow when I did it. I made it clear. I got a little bit of a reaction from you, but you didn't say anything else. And then I added another range in the 500. I had no reaction for that 500 mark. But what I then had was you thinking about it, pausing and talking about it, and then going into, well, let's put the low quality. Let's look at the medium quality.
Yeah.
So for me, it wasn't just a proposal. I'm thinking, how did you react to that? And it didn't look like you were under pressure.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm looking for.
And you read that properly. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't work all the time. You've got to look at it in context. But it's just 4 minutes, just having a go at things. But we're trying to do you did the pause, consider. I did a range. That's what we're trying to look at ultimately.
Yeah.
So Stefan is absolutely right to ask the question. And of course, we could have that negotiation practice again, and it'll be totally different. But the more you practice with it, the more you'll be able to then put it into there. However, I want to throw it out there because Fred, you were basically watching here. So could you just give us a feedback on what you saw going through there? Because there'll be other things that we didn't see because we're doing the negotiation.
Yeah, like I say, actually the beginning was interesting because you both wanted to start twice. I wonder if that is because, Mike's already said he wants to take control and be the first talking. I don't know if you're the same, Phil. And that was why we kind of got off to that. Could be an alien environment. I'm not sure. But that's something that was a bit funny. Yeah. Then we had the questions. I always say, Phil, every time I do this, I need to see some questions at least at the beginning. That's just the diehard salesperson in me. Yeah, we heard, what I heard you say. I think that's Mike's go-to because he's actually used that just in conversation as well. Yeah. Well, I've heard you say, reframing get clear. Let's just make sure that we are on the same page because otherwise we're going to waste a load of time. What other things so we talked about? So we're going longer term. He went, no, you got to be in business to be in business. So in other words, no, let's crack on. Don't be starting to do that. Effective solution, right? Again, so then this lofty challenge. Yeah, big your job up a bit, Mike. Right. Yeah. In other words, you have to pay for this. We went into the ranges. You've discussed that, and And I think to clarify, you did something there, Mike, where you said, okay, well, let's just forget about the low quality stuff. Let's go for the medium here. Why? Because I'm going to stop putting the price up around that one, because that's where your range has let me do that, which sort of makes sense. Anyone can do that. We're going to concentrate on this. We went to 670. I could have just said yes then, couldn't you? But then I suppose the time ran out. So you are then starting to, and it would have been interesting to kind of go on. You're starting to create some variables for yourselves, I think, if we'd been given more time. Well, let's talk about volume, let's talk about shipping, let's talk about processing, let's talk about coring them, little labels. Now we've got a ton of variables here that we can start to play around with.
Yeah. But absolutely, we could have reached a deal, because I threw out 670 and that meets Phil's budget, right? And he threw out the 575 and that was, above my 450. So there was a deal to be had. We just, ran out of time.
Yeah, but I think, but introducing those variables as well is to say, well, okay, look, we are going to agree here. Great. We're in a negotiation to agree anyway, aren't we? That's the whole point. But and this is what I'll say to salespeople, is if you're only talking about price and delivery, you haven't got much to move. But when you bring all these other things in, actually, we are going to get the agreement, but we can make sure that actually the stuff that people are getting, it's the right thing for them. That delivery for them, that's massive, because they didn't have that. You've saved them a huge time and effort. So you're in a better position for their success moving forwards. So you're not just using them purely in negotiation. It's about the quality of the package that we're agreeing on, because that's delivering them the results that they're actually looking for.
Yeah.
And that should be coming out in the sales process before you're even getting to the discussion.
One of our differentiators is we write custom role plays for larger accounts and primarily for sales. And when I have a purchasing workshop, that's one class, and they'll say, well, what about this custom role play? I'll go, you don't want one of those. And they'll go, what? You're a seller. What do you mean you're not going to sell me one? You don't want that. Well, why don't I want that? Well, because to spread the cost of writing a role play across one class, it's not good economic sense. And by the way, purchasing people all have different things. So for me to write a custom purchasing role play, well, your capital people are going to have different negotiations than your OpEx people, and your services people are going to have different than your production people. Your indirect, your direct, they're all going to be different. So a custom role play isn't going to resonate with everybody in the room. Sales, a custom role play will resonate with every single salesperson in the room, because they have the same thing that they're selling. Purchasing people have different things they're buying. So I actually, to your point, I find out what I'm not going to sell them, and I say, no, I'm not going to sell that to you. Let me pick one from the library that's right. And let's focus on the things that do have value.
Yeah, and I go one step further. I go to the extreme. Apples. Everybody does apples. It's apples whether you're a CEO or whether you're a student. You all negotiate apples, and the reason why I do that is my focus is on the skills of the negotiation, not the content, not the planning and the preparation. In a way, I've done a lot of the planning and the preparation by just giving you a number. I mean, Christ, how many people in their companies actually know what their break-even point actually is? I mean, that piece of information there is like gold dust if you're going to go somewhere. Because otherwise, finger in the air job. Let's just not go below that, because they'll get a bit upset. It's like break-even point. That's possibly the only number you'll ever know in a negotiation if you do it right. I'm going to bring it to an end, because we've been going on like almost 30-40 minutes. It's amazing, isn't it? It's 4 minutes, and yet there's so much that can be discussed about it, and yet there was just a few things. Now, so what I want to do, I want to wrap it up here, but just say, look, we very rarely practice our negotiation skills, and that 4-minute practice, as simple as that was, single budget, single break-even point. And of course, there's many other things that you can actually have as a negotiables as well. But what we're trying to do is we're just trying to say, let's try something perhaps we haven't done before. Mike, pause, consider, and respond. It made you feel awkward. It's not something you've naturally done. That's exactly what the practice is about. And guess what? If I said to you, do a tactic, you would not have picked something that you don't like. You'd have picked something that you do like.
Yeah. Well, and let me be a little more transparent. I do often pause, consider, and respond. I don't consider it as a tactic that I use. I don't plan to do it. I do want to know. I do want to consider what the other side says. So I don't just want to roll over them. Just drive over them. To use that analogy again. but it comes more naturally when I just let it happen versus being forced to put it into play.
Yeah.
And that's where the awkward came in. It was doing it at times that I wouldn't normally do it, and I'm better for it.
Yeah, that's the whole point. Is it's a practice, so you do it to the extremes, because literally for every type of tactic and even every skill, there is a right place and the wrong place to do it. And we've just seen that now. And a range tactic, people interpret it very, very differently. Now, there are different ways that we can practice, but the reality is that for most people, you would never even see people practice for 4 minutes. Yeah. So my message I just want to leave everybody. So first of all, thank you, Mike, for the practice. Thank you, Fred, for your observation and your feedback as well. And for those of you who are watching, all right, negotiations is a critical skill, both in our personal and our business lives. And yet we very rarely go about practice it on purpose. And we want to change that at the Negotiation Club. We want to give the resources, give the opportunities. And you've got 2 training firms here, Brindis and, Table Force. They teach and train sales and negotiations. And I'm always for one saying, go on those courses. But when you've been on the courses, go and practice it. And you have to learn to practice as well. And that's where you come to us for that. We teach you how to practice. Mike and Fred, they teach you the details of it, and you put those together. That's a powerful combination. Otherwise, you end up basically creating a sandwich with no filling. All right, we want to have that full thing. Okay. So I bought the cards, and now
there's a happy customer right there.
Yeah. So I got to put this one on. Okay. Yeah. So Stefan, Richard, I bought the cards a few days ago, and now I know how to play with them. Yeah, absolutely right. Okay. They're simple cards, but they are hugely impactful. Okay. And in fact, before we do go, hey, anybody wants to buy their cards, you can do it here. Okay. There's a QR code. You can take yourself and go and buy them. They're in dollars, euros, and pounds. All right. And this is awesome. The only thing I would recommend people is if you do have children, don't let them have the cards. All right. They do not need to practice. Okay. All right. That's the last thing you want to
Phil,
do.
let me give you a shout out. I still haven't done this video yet. Debriefing. I did one with my daughter. She did use the cards. She said, what are these cards you got laying around the house? And it was a great bonding experience. We had a lot of fun just negotiating over apples. So there is a way to use your kids. Just be careful, because they'll learn to negotiate, and then it's over. They'll beat you every time.
Big mistake. Big mistake. All right. Well, listen, I'm going to wrap it up there. Mike, Fred, I know you want to do a little quick wave, but thank you very much. And if people like this, just put a comment as well. Just and let us know, because I want to try and just get this to a position where it works for everybody. Okay. So with that in mind, everybody have a wonderful Easter if you're having it, and if not, just have a wonderful break anyway. Okay. So all the best, everybody. See you again. Now I need to press the end, don't I? I never have the okay. End stream.